Hey guys, it is Red and Blue, and we are 2 days away from the big game, the Marseille game at home in the Parc des Princes in Ligue 1, coming up this Sunday. And so it is time to talk about Marseille, and it's time to talk about this game. It's time to do the preview. I've got lots of things as well. We'll start by talking about the teams and how they might lined up. I'll touch on PSG and our expectations for this team. And then I want to talk tactics, because I think this is going to be a really interesting game from that perspective, with a lot of things to watch and really a battle between Luis Enrique and Roberto De Zerbi that's going to be deciding the fate of this game. So, first things first, just the context for this game very briefly. I did a whole video on Marseille a couple of days ago, which, definitely go watch if you want to catch up on where they are and what they've been doing. The short of it is that it's a team that alternates between the great and the horrible, and there's no in between. And so, either we're gonna get a really, really strong team, and definitely maybe the second best team in France, or we're gonna get something that gets kicked out of the Champions League in ridiculous manner, and we don't really know what we're gonna get. My expectation is that we're going to get Prime Marseille. We should get ready for it. This is what we should be expecting. For them, it is a critical game, because if we beat them, we essentially destroy any last hopes they might have of making a run towards the Ligue 1 title. So it is an absolute must-win for them, on top of being a Classique, and so a must-win for both teams. And I think for Paris, we want to set the record straight. We lost the first game in Ligue 1 in Marseille in very dubious circumstances on the night of the Ballon d'Or ceremony, after the game getting pushed back 24 hours. We won in Kuwait in the Trophée des Champions, a game at the last seconds, with the last second equalizer, and then won it on penalty kick. So it is round 3, and it is time for us to set the record straight and show again why we're the dominant team and why we're the best team in France and in Europe and in the world. Simple as. So, in terms of starting 11s, I'll start with PSG, because I think PSG is relatively easy to forecast. There's only one question mark, which I'm actually going to expand into 2 question marks, and I'll go through it. First, in goal, easy, Safonov is going to do it. In defense, easy, Hakimi suspended, Warren Zaire-Emery comes back on the right, and then Marquinhos Pacho in the middle, Nuno Mendes on the left. Midfield, a little bit of a question mark. 2 we are sure of, Vitinha, João Neves. Then the third one, we haven't seen Fabian Ruiz in 2 weeks and a half. He's been injured, so we don't know if he's ready to return. And even if it is, do we want to drop him into a high-intensity game like this? Question mark. If he doesn't play, 2 options to replace him, either Mayulu or Kang In-lee. And I think, given what we've seen of Kang In-lee against Strasbourg, and what he brought in, dropping into midfield, I wouldn't be surprised to see him start in this game, and I think it'd be a good position for him. So my money goes to Kang In-lee. Up front, relatively easy as well. Vara might be back, but same as Fabian Ruiz, do we really want a player coming back from injury just to start a high-pressure game like the one against Marseille? Not so sure. So I think it's going to be Barcola on the left, and I think tactically it makes a lot of sense as well, which we'll get into. Dembele in the middle, unless Luis Enrique wants to punish him for his disaster class of a 30 minutes play in Strasbourg. But long shot on that. So I think Dembele, and then on the right, common wisdom says Desiré Doué, which I think is the obvious choice and the favorite for the spot. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if we see Ibrahim Mbaye. So that's going to be my crazy shout, and I'll explain when we get into the tactics. Second point I wanted to make in this video, I think it's about expectations, because it's funny, the conversation around this PSG team for the whole of this season, and I've been guilty of it as much as anyone, is when does this team go back to being the team that it was last season? Which I think is in a way it's fair, because we were the dominant team, we won the Champions League, the team played so well, and really managed to create a collective expression of football, which was really like beyond anything that we've seen in Paris for sure. But at the same time, I'm really starting to think that one, it's not reasonable in our particular circumstances, but even in general, to expect the team to go back to what it was last season. Obviously, like our opponents have caught up to what we've been doing, and they've been, delivering great systems and great answers to what we're doing tactically and technically. We obviously have the issue of we never got a summer prep and physical work and so on, which we're going to carry with us throughout the season. It's never going to stop being a thing, and so we should accept it. And even beyond that, if you think of all of the great teams in history and the Barca and the Bayern Munich who won 6 trophies in a year, even like the Real Madrid that won 3 Champions League in a row, they never they evolved and they never really got back to exactly what they were. And I don't think it's fair of us to have this vision of, things are going to click back and all of a sudden we're going to turn back the clock and things are going to be like they were 9 months ago. It's not the reality. We have to realize that we're in a different situation than we were last year. Obviously, we're the team to beat now. Everyone has been studying our game. Everyone has been looking at it. Our players are much more well known in what they can and cannot do. And it shows. And even for us, we're not in the same place. We've got like a couple of players that are different. We've made changes to our squad here and there. But also, physically, we're not in the same place. And so, tactically, we need to be doing things differently. And I think, as much as I would want us to go back to back dominating Europe and producing the most beautiful football of all, you don't always need to play the best football to be the team that wins in the end. And I think, realistically for this season, it pains me a little bit, but I think, we should park our hopes of all of a sudden we're gonna go back and win every game 5-0 like we won the final of the Champions League, because it's not gonna be the case. Even last season, it wasn't the case. For all of the great football that we practiced, we still lost the home game against Liverpool. We still came very close to getting defeated in Aston Villa, and we lost the game in Aston Villa and had a horrible second half. The game against Arsenal, we did well and dominated, but we didn't win either one of them 5-0 either. And I think, in the league, granted, we had some beautiful performances domestically where it's a little bit easier. But for sure, we didn't win every game by a wide margin throughout the season either. So I think, we need to level our expectations, and also we need to look at last season a little bit more realistically in terms of the games and the places where it went really well for us, but also the places where it was closer and harder, and not everything was completely dominating either. So I think for this season, I really want, and I hope, and I think we absolutely can achieve a big dominant win against Marseille. I've got no doubts of that. But at the same time, given where we're coming from and given where we are, honestly, I'd be very, very satisfied if we get a 1-0 win or a 2-0 win. At this point and with this team, I'm gonna start caring less about the way we do it. And more about us being able to get the wins time after time after time, especially in the league where we have little margin against loss. So it is what it is. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's a bit sad that, this is where we're at. And, I haven't given up hope. I think, we can go back. I don't think we can go back. I think we can go to being an even better team. I think, we can build on what we were last season, and add some more depth to it. And I think the circumstances that we have in front of us are pushing us this way. And I do have trust and faith in Luis Enrique and in the squad of players that we have to deliver to the best of their capability against that. And so, I'm going to stop. I'm going to try to mentally stop myself from holding this team against what it was last season and what it did last season. And I'm going to start looking at this season for what it is, which is now like we're in a battle for the Ligue 1 title. We qualified in the Champions League, but in like 11th or something position, like of the group phase. We've got like a playoff to play against Monaco, which we're going to go in as favorites, but it's not going to be easy. And then, if we qualify against this, we're going to have big games to play in Barcelona or Chelsea, games that we definitely can win, but where mathematically we're not going to go in as favorites. And, we're going to be the outsiders. Teams are going to try to beat us. And that's just the way it goes. And yeah, closing off on that, I think for me, when I go back and look at the Real Madrid that did the 3 Champions League in a row, it was always the same in the sense of the first half of their season was never the best. And I think every season they come close at a point in like December, January, and so on of changing coaches or actually doing it because they're not dominant. And then the second half of the season, they're not always the best team in Europe. They're not always the most flamboyant team in the world, but they get the wins. They get the wins when it matters. And I think that's what we should be hoping for this PSG team this year. And that is our hope of going back to back. And honestly, if we achieve this, I'm going to care less about the way we do it. I'm going to care more about the results, and I'll be plenty satisfied with that. And that's going to be that's going to be my way of looking at this team for now. Let me know in the comment what you think of this. Does that make sense to you? And yeah, how do you think of your expectations for this team at this point? Now, rant over. Let's move into the tactics of this Marseille game because I went back and I looked at our past games against Marseille, and I think both times Roberto De Zerbi and Luis Enrique had a tactical battle, which is very, very, very interesting to watch unfold. And so I think, I give you my starting 11 for this PSG team. I'll go into the one from Marseille. And I think for Marseille, the first question is what kind of tactical shape are they going to use? Are they going to play 3 at the back or 5 at the back, depending on how you look at it, or 4 at the back? And every bit of media that I've seen out there, every bit of previews, says 4 at the back because that's how they played their last game. And I think that's a mistake. I think they're going to come at us with 3 central defenders. They're going to play a 3-4-3, which is going to become a 5-4-1 when they go defensive, which plays well to the strengths and how they annoyed us in the past 2 games and how they managed to really challenge us in the past 2 games, but also gives them leeway to be more solid defensively, knowing that they're playing away from home in the Parc des Princes as well. And so I think, they've got a question mark in terms of their goalkeeper. And it's going to be Rulli, but it could be the second goalkeeper, Delange. In defense, so the 3 at the back, I think it's going to be Pavard, Balerdi, and Medina, with a question mark about Haggard, but I think he's coming back from injury, so probably not. In midfield, Weah is going to be that guy on the right. Emerson is going to be the guy on the left. And the central midfield is going to be Højbjerg, who's the guy we need to close down and do a job on. And their new recruit, Quinton Timber. And then up front, the line of 3, Greenwood on the right, Paixão on the left, and Guiri up front. And I think this is what we can expect. And I think, tactically speaking, this Marseille team, it's given us challenges in a few different, very specific ways. And I think for us, there's going to be 3 different elements that we need to solve for. The first one is when they come at us and try to impose a high press on us, because they've done that, and we've actually invited that a few times of, PSG playing from the back, and so us passing the ball around between Marquinhos to Pacho, to Safonov, to Vitinha dropping back, the fullbacks, and so on and so forth, and trying to move that ball forward. And at that point, we've seen Marseille actually, like in Kuwait, commit a lot of players, between 6 and 8 players, to coming into our half and doing a sort of like individual man marking high press, which has been very difficult for us to beat. We've done it a few times in Kuwait with one of the solutions has been like either Warren Zaire-Emery, well, Hakimi back then, versus Nuno Mendes, leaving the wing and coming to the middle of the pitch to create more passing opportunities. Because Marseille does have a lot of density, moves the block left to right as well, and so really closes up the line of passing. And the second solution that we've had is either Dembele or one of our winger dropping between their midfield and their defense, and us playing long balls over their press to put the ball into our offensive feet straight away, which is also going to be a solution. And I think like that's partly why I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised to see Ibrahim Mbaye, because one, Doué hasn't been in great form, but I think the pace of Ibrahim Mbaye and his appetite to like take on people one-on-one, it could be something that would be like hard for Marseille to cope with in this configuration. And I think Barcola as well is going to be really hard for them to cope with. Along with Dembele, who we know likes to drop in between lines and organize the game as well. I hope that's going to be a solution that, you know, we're good at. Hopefully, like we're in a stronger place physically, having had the week off as well. And so we're better equipped to beat that counter press of them and move the ball off of our defense and towards our attacking line. That's situation number one. Situation number two is when like they actually do the same thing of us and invade the press. And this is what they've been doing in terms of counteracting our things. They know that when we're not in possession, we like to do the gegenpressing, to go very high and come at them and try to get the ball back on their side of the pitch and off of their defense. They've played in Kuwait a very, very risky game of really waiting until the last seconds to pass the ball away before getting closed down by our players. And so they get our players to move into their defensive line. They wait until the last moment, and then through Højbjerg, who's really like pivotal into moving the ball out, they get Højbjerg to play as a sort of like midfield pivot who can like open a line of passing and then one touch, knock it to the side, turn around, move it forward, and in 2-3 passes, they're moving straight back into their line of attack. And that's been a really hard thing for us to close down on, because obviously when we commit more players to the press, then there are opportunities for them to find space within our defense. And that creates a lot of difficulties for us, especially with, you know, Marquinhos not being the fastest on the pitch, spaces opening behind our fullbacks as well. There's always going to be like, we play an offensive game in PSG, and that's what we love. The cost of it is that sometimes our defense is not as tight as it could be. So that's something we're going to have to watch. I've got hope, like I said, that we're walking into this game with one full week off, with players really wanting to make a statement. And so our high press has been getting as well like progressively more efficient and more impactful in the last few games. So I've got hopes for it, but we are going to need to like really, like when we do the press, really commit to it and commit to it faster than what we've done in recent games. And we're going to need to find a way to close down Højbjerg. And I think like that's where like the role of a Joao Neves is going to be super critical, to not give him an inch of space to even be able to take balls and pass them with one-touch passes. That's going to be really something to watch. And then the third thing, and I think, you know, that's something that's not necessarily Marseille specific, but that we've seen from a lot of the teams that we play against, is that they figured out that one of the things that we struggle with is when people sit with 5 defenders at the back and a line of 4 in front of it. And so we've been playing against so many teams that sit back in defense, put 5-4-1, and with no space, and it's really, really hard for us to crack that down. I think against Liverpool, we've seen some progress there. especially with Vitinha taking long shots. And I think that's really interesting. And I think given the fact that their defense and their goalkeepers are not like fully confident right now, definitely something that we should be looking at. Hopefully Dembele can find his way back to a little bit of a better playing output than what he's done in recent games. More movement as well, but yeah, like it's something we're gonna need to figure out a little bit better. Put more density and just like be a little bit more precise and a little bit faster in our passing. I think we've got the quality, we've got the talent. I've got no doubts of it, but right now, like we're still struggling with that last like 2 to 5% that really makes the difference. And so, like if we can do that, all of a sudden, like I think like we can turn this game into a very easy one for us. And like going back to what I was saying up front, I really do think it's a game that we can win by a wide margin. I'm not saying that's going to be the case. Once again, I think going into it and given where we are in terms of form, I'll just take the win and I'll be very satisfied with it. But I'll be watching how we solve for those three particular tactical situations because I think they're recurring between games, and this is what opponent team are challenging us with. And so I want to see what answers Luis Enrique goes for and what he tries and what works and doesn't work. And we're at the point in the season where we need to start answering some of those challenges so we can move forward, having confidence in what we're putting forward. So that was my long preview. I hope you guys found it. I tried to go a little bit deeper on the tactics this time. Let me know in the comment what you think of it. As always, let me know about your predictions for this game. Round 3, are we expecting a PSG win? I really hope so. I'm going to say 3-1, my prediction. A bit bold. I think we do score some goal. I think they might score one somewhere, but yeah, I think like a relatively comfortable win would be my expectation. I think we've got it in us and the fans deserve it. So let me know in the comment what you think. If you've made it this far, as always, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And as always, regards of the Classique, ici c'est Paris!